You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Ball Soccer Liberty Podcast. This is episode number 380 of East Central's favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell, joined by executive video producer, audio engineer Zach Burcham, and my forever co-host, Mr. Dakota Davis. Dakota, what are we planning today?
Today's episode is what we're calling the Henry County Legislator Night, and that means that we have State Representative Cory Criswell, we have State Senator Jeff Raatz, and we have State Representative J.D. Prescott in the building, sitting around the round table with us. We're going to be talking to them just what's going on in this cycle this year. This is a budget year for the state of Indiana, so we're going to be talking about that, and then we will be getting into property taxes. We've been seeing property taxes show up on the mailers going out to people's houses. And then we'll be talking about road funding. Of course, we like our roads around here. And then towards the end of the show, we're going to be getting into specific bills that were authored by each three of these gentlemen. So make sure you stick around until the very end of the show.
This show is about our lives in Morrell, Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll make you laugh. But hopefully you'll always learn something new. This show is brought to you by the folks in our Patreon special Facebook group that you get to be a part of. You get the show notes in advance, and if you were there, Dakota, you get your name shouted out at the top of the episode, your name, small business. Who do we have?
That's right. We have Mr. Jonathan Phillips from Andy Moore Buick and GMC in Fishers, Indiana. Then we have Varsity Outfitters here in Newcastle, Indiana, Mr. Blake Reese. And then we have Thomas Oakes from Walnut Ridge RV. Make sure you go get your camper. We're going to talk a little bit about that in Patreon too, right?
That's the plan.
Make sure you check out and support all three of those individuals. We appreciate them very much.
So we want to jump right into it. We'll warn the audience that Senator Raatz has got other commitments tonight, so he's going to disappear on us at some point. It's not because Dakota offended him; it's because he's got to be three places at once. So we're expecting him to have to bail in around 8 o'clock. So that's already planned in advance. We knew it was coming. Let's get to know everybody. Two of the three gentlemen have been on the show with us before, so they're returning veterans. Let's start with Representative Prescott. You picked up a portion of Henry County, so now you're one of us.
That's right, yes, sir.
We've got all kinds of legislators that are looking over us, and I guess there's a fourth as well that we don't have here tonight, but that's okay. Who's got maybe Liberty Township. Tell us about yourself, JD, and the committees you're on, and then we'll go around the room and then just jump right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It's good to be on for the first time. And I represent Randolph, Blackford counties complete, 2/3 of Jay, a bit over a third of Delaware County, and Stony Creek Township here in Henry County. It's just one township. And the reasoning for that during the redistricting was that's Union School Corporation, so keeping that community of interest together. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, Judiciary, and the Elections Committee is a new addition to my committee list this year. This is my 7th session in the General Assembly. Hard to imagine. It goes fast. And my background outside of this family farm is a little over 3,000 acres. So I'm still involved on the farm. I also have storage unit business and a couple other small businesses, but yeah.
Fantastic. We're glad to have you here. Senator Jeff, remind us, you got the Education Committee. I know that. Still active with that?
Yep, still active on the Education Committee, still chair of that. Difficult committee, but a very good one, and certainly an important one, and one that takes up more of the budget than anything else. And so there's a lot going on, which it should. And so my district hasn't changed since the last time I was here. I picked up Henry County during redistricting. And so this is my 10th year in. And so I have all of Henry, all of Wayne, all of Union County, and part of Franklin County. So Brookville proper, 6 townships in that county, and live in Richmond, and life's grand.
Very good. Welcome back. And finally, Representative Criswell, you're in your second term now, but you picked up a big committee assignment this time.
Yeah, I did. So I'm Cory Criswell. I represent District 54, which has to do with all of Henry County, besides what JD has in one little half township that Representative Barrett has, but he's donated to me, so I'll represent those voters for him. How the county, those lines got drawn by Hagerstown School District. Half of that township goes to Hagerstown, so that's how that got drawn. But I serve on House Ways and Means Committee now, new assignment, Ag Committee, which is also a new assignment, and then I stayed on Public Policy. So enjoy that. I think a lot of people that listen to the show probably know my background, but right now I work along with the legislator, work at the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. So still keep that basketball niche that I still have and keep relevant in the basketball world that I enjoy so much. Also have a beautiful wife that's probably listening. 10 years. We just celebrated 10 years, and then have a 5 and a 3-year-old Caleb and Carly at home. So it'll be nice to get home after a long day at work.
Understand. And you guys get tomorrow off, right? Thursday is the end of the cycle. This is the
If you
generally.
if you want to call it an off day.
Technically, yeah. How's that? Yeah.
No voting tomorrow.
Meetings in district.
Understand. All right, so let's start with the big issue. Obviously, is every 2 years Indiana has to pass a budget. So two of you are serving on the House Ways and Means Committee. That's where all of the money starts for the state. Tell us how that process is going. We covered a couple weeks ago. Secretary Morales was in, and he was getting questioned on his budget and how that process goes. I assume every department comes in and explains why they need more money and how they're spending it and what the priorities are for different arms of government.
Do you want to lead or get me go, Cory?
JD, you can lead, and I'll.
All right, go. So, yeah, each department comes in, presents their budget proposal. Then we also had governor's budget proposal as well, just the full proposal from the governor's office. Actually, right now, Ways and Means committees were still finishing up. We had to jump out a little bit early to get here on time, so we were listening on the drive in. So Lieutenant Governor Beckwith is presenting or finishing up presenting as we speak. Then as we get closer towards the end of the first half of session, we will get together, put our House budget out. So the budget proposal that's introduced is the governor's proposed budget. And right now what we're working on is finalizing the details. And as a committee, we'll be discussing the budget priorities and putting together our House Republican budget agenda. And then after that process, we'll go over to the Senate, and then we'll negotiate the differences out at the end between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office.
So we know that education gets the biggest chunk of the pie. Now, what are the big fights going on about the rest of the circle?
Yeah, so the Medicaid funding, that piece is growing at an alarming rate. So that's up to 18% of the state budget. You also got higher ed in there as well. So you've got K-12 education, higher ed. So some kind of include that as one category, but they are two separate. So if either way, education is the vast majority, then that Medicaid funding. Right now, Governor Braun's team, they're looking for reducing or improving efficiencies within government. So they've put budget reductions in across all the state agencies, which I think is important. We are looking at a tighter budget cycle this year, which honestly I think it gives us an opportunity to really go through our budget, reevaluate each line item, and really take a hard look to see do we need to fund this line item? Should it be stricken? Should we reduce? Should we shift things around? So I think it's healthy for us to actually reprioritize our budget during these more lean years.
Give us a hard reset, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the big overwhelming issue that I've seen or watching the governor and what he ran on was reducing property taxes. And I'm friends with a whole lot of local county council people, county commissioners that say, hey, when you reduce property taxes, go back to these 2021 levels. That was what was proposed by the new governor. What's going to happen to county government? I guess, Jeff, you're on limited time, so I want to make sure you get a chance to get involved.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. And so I agree with both Representative Prescott and Representative Criswell. So the budget will come to the Senate after they finish their piece of it, and then we'll put our spin on it and as Representative Prescott mentioned, then we'll all negotiate in the end. So you're talking about property taxes. And so my spin on it has been this. So Governor Braun, now Governor-elect Braun, ran on fixing property taxes or trying to lessen them. And so I would start by saying that inflation is bad for everybody right now. In fact, I like to use the analogy that back in 2017, we instituted a 10-cent per gallon gas increase so that we could maintain the roads and continue fixing and improving all the way. And I'm proud of what we've done with that. I think it's probably the only time that I voted for a tax increase that I know of for sure, right? There could be something stuck in there somewhere along the way. However, that's no longer sufficient, honestly, to maintain and continue what we had projected to do on the roads because of the cost of inputs, equipment, wages, and everything. And so that's just setting a picture for us all to say inflation has affected every single thing, everybody, and the state as well. And so property taxes. I have said at the State House in the circles that I run is, all right, if we cut property taxes, now we got locals that are providing services that we're all accustomed to, whether that be fire or ambulance or police or whatever those things are, clean roads. How do we replace that revenue for counties or municipalities who are running close to their budget? And first of all, I agree with Representative Prescott as well. I'll preface this statement: we all need to run as lean as we can. That's I think the beginning space, and honestly, I think probably a lot of counties are running very lean. So if we take some away, is there opportunity for them to be able to get additional funding? Right? If the state says we're going to do this, give relief here and there, what can counties do or municipalities to gain additional funding? And so there are options for that. Could be a local income tax increase. In order to backfill a space where the state may have cut. And so it's a transfer in some respects, I guess. So that'd be the beginning place, the conversations that we're having today.
So I think there have been some interesting ideas on the road funding side. I think the road funding bill that's going through now is talking about maybe having Amazon delivery packages, paying those folks paying an additional fee rather than increasing gas taxes. Some of those factors are out there where I think there's some creative ideas that are coming in that are more user fees versus, hey, we're just going to charge you on your property taxes.
And these guys might be able to speak a little bit more to that because that piece I've not heard yet.
Yeah, Representative Pressel, he's the chairman of Roads and Transportation. He's got a very interesting bill that has a lot of different things in it that kind of doesn't eliminate the gas tax, but gives different opportunities to start drawing back the gas tax and having different type of taxes. And you are right that it does have a tax on if you order Amazon, you're going to pay an extra surcharge for that package to kind of
for its use of the roads, right?
Yeah, for its use of the roads. So he has some interesting ideas. Also, after I get done, I think Representative Prescott's got an idea that's getting thrown around a lot, and it's kind of getting some traction amongst other legislators to maybe let's see if we can get away from property taxes and do something else a little different, generate revenue that way. So we have a lot of different opportunities, and I'm going to be frank because it's just a part of the road funding. Tolling is on the board, so it's in that bill. So we live right on I-70, and there's kind of some I don't know if this is the nuances around tolling. Has to be a redone bridge before the governor can already enact tolling without the legislator doing it. So he doesn't need our approval. He already has that authority to do it, but has to be like a bridge has to be redone, and then he can enact tolling. But this language just gives him some authority to do that.
You folks added you were here in 2017 when the past road funding went in, and there was a mechanism in place for you to toll at that point. And they just haven't decided.
Yeah, no, so there was a lot of conversation about tolling at that time. And of course, the locals, by all means, it's important. We on 70 with 150 miles from edge to edge, east to west or west to east, tractor trailer rigs can go through Indiana without ever spending a penny. And there's nothing they pay whatsoever. And that's probably the biggest thing I would say that could be a revenue generator for roads for us, because back to my original comment, being creative is the other opportunity for us to make sure that the locals are not saddled with taxes like in this case. And so we could talk about 70 being 3 lanes in both directions. It is slated to start. They tell me the contracts have been let from the Ohio line at least to
35.
35
is
at
under
the moment,
contract right now.
And so it's under contract. They haven't begun yet, but the preparations and some of the stuff is there set up to get going.
And that's been my pet issue that I've been talking to Representative Criswell about for the last 3 weeks, wearing him out, is that the next section is getting ready to bid in February. NDOT's going to have their letting, and it's going to come up in February. And we're going to pay for $100 million as taxpayers. We're going to pay for $100 million road, and we're going to get 2 lanes. There's no third lane in there, so you don't get the safety advantage of, hey, 2 trucks in the right lane and a passing lane, so folks don't get jammed up, and we don't have these ping pong accidents that continue to happen on the 2-lane sections of 70 we have now. You've got to, at least the understanding I've had from folks as we've talked over the last few years is that, hey, 70 and 65, 3 lanes is the priority. And now I'm hearing, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to have, it won't be done for 6 years. And when we're done, we're going to have the same road we had before. So if you're going to fix it at some point, you're going to tear it right back up and we're going to do it again. How does that happen? I feel like I'm shocked.
Well, so let's go back and why are we doing it in the first place? Traffic count from Indiana 1 to the state line is higher than it is from 1 to Greenfield or wherever they've stopped the 3-lane coming in this direction, or excuse me, from Greenfield to Indianapolis, right? 3 lanes. So that's the precursor for why it's being done in the first place. So there's people, what I just said is there's people coming from Henry County that go to Wayne County or vice versa to work. And
right.
so there's
and they carry through to Dayton and Columbus,
exactly,
et cetera.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. So not just that, but the concept of additional traffic on 70. So my understanding is that the last conversation I had is that we'd build the bridges prepared for 3 lanes, so that the next time then when there's funding available, then all we have to do is do the bridges will be taken care of. Now, let me one thing I'm incredibly proud about Indiana, 69 was done with cash. And so we borrowed $0 for that. When the money was available, we set it aside and done it. And that was an incredibly expensive, but something that we need to be proud of in Indiana. And could we do that today, we would be doing it. And so just to kind of set the stage of how we've operated in the very recent past, right? They just finished that. I think it was the end of last summer, right? When they finally finished that project.
Yep.
So we got some good ways behaviors, I guess, that set precedent. Could we do it? I can't disagree with you on the rest of your comments, but it's a matter of funding. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a matter of funding, but to your point, if it will save us additional costs down the road, these are conversations now where we're in that development stage that we can be having with NDOT and saying, I'm not saying that things will change, but if you give us information that could, I mean, I know that's your wheelhouse, right? That's your line of work.
Yeah.
If you've got information,
I'm talking to folks on the design side. They're saying, hey, we're doing this for 2 lanes. And I'm just looking at it as a person who travels the road consistently for my day job, and 2, who lives here and pays taxes. The thought of literally committing ourselves to orange barrels until 2029 and then not having, you're going to come back and do it. We're not getting any less distribution in Indiana. I-70 is one of our 3 most important corridors in the state. You know it's going to happen. So that it's incredible that if I'm begging us to delay it 6 months, change it, find the money while you're choosing the priorities for the next 2-year budget cycle. it's an
Have
easy one to
Have
make.
we considered that the traffic count was much lower in that section of 70 because everybody was getting off and going around because that's where the most potholes were?
Well, that's probably the locals are, I would imagine. Yeah.
The locals are taking 38 to
Yeah. Well,
we're going in that way.
Well, I could tell you myself. So where I live, I've got a 2-hour drive into the state house every morning, 2-hour drive home every evening, and it's the same time whether I take 28 over to 67, then come down 69, versus if I go down 27 and take 70 in. So what I always do is I check the traffic flow, see what route is better, and I gotta admit, driving on 69 with that all being repaved and smooth now, it's a much more desirable route.
much
So I
quieter.
understand.
The other side of the funding mechanism that I wanted to ask you guys about is probably something that legislators have argued for generations, and that's the rural versus the urban side. And I think you have older aging communities like Richmond or Newcastle, Winchester, I'm sure, and Muncie have older infrastructure, and they have different needs than the donut counties that seem to be swimming in money. And our friend Rob Kendall talks about $55 million swimming pools that local governments are building. And it feels like, hey, there's almost a war against donut county local governments. But when we're trying to finish an expo center in Henry County, or we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for a new water treatment plant for the city of Newcastle, there's not it seems like we're looking at less to deal with. This I've heard from city council and county council folks here saying, hey, we've got a gigantic problem if these property taxes go away. So I'd like to hear from you guys as to how that gets solved and balanced on the rural and urban side, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're looking at property tax relief, let me first start by saying what I think is going to happen this session. These guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think is going to happen is some sort of short to medium term property tax relief plan. I don't see the property tax proposals being that long term fix, because we keep treating the symptom and not the underlying problem. And Senator Braun is leading with Senate Bill 1, which is a large property tax relief plan primarily focused on residential. And there's also another piece to this. It's in another legislation that addresses the agriculture assessment system to give some property tax relief on ag as well. So when you combine those two, it is a big hit to local units of government. You mentioned our friend Rob Kendall, and I've had this discussion with him in the past. You know, not all local units of government are equal in terms of where they're at financially, right? You mentioned it. You know, the donut counties, they're flushed with cash. They're building those $55 million aqua parks. They're doing all kinds of other pet projects in their communities, and you can point out the waste. But in our rural communities, we're operating on much leaner budgets. I'm not going to say there's not room to adjust and for more efficiencies here too, but not to the same extent as a Hamilton County or a Marion County. So when we are looking at property tax relief, it's not going to be sustainable long term to make the amount of cuts across the board that's what's in some of these first bills if we don't have any type of way to backfill it, at least especially in the rural communities. In the urban areas and the metropolitan areas, they could withstand it for a little bit longer than we can in ours. So I've actually put out another property tax proposal too. I don't expect it to go this year, but it's at least getting the discussion out there, and I think it's building towards that long-term fix. So I hope this to come in and trail whatever we do this session, is to and build on that to be that more long-term property tax solution. And I've actually got a proposal to eliminate the property tax system completely. It would repeal the property taxes across the board, eliminate the assessor's office, eliminate TIF districts, and eliminate school referenda. It would replace it with a 7% sales tax on services. So right now, if you go and get an oil changed in a car, you're paying sales tax on the oil and the filter. Under current law, you're not paying it on the labor. This would add that to the labor. I'd have exemptions on everything that's already sales tax exempt, like nonprofits, churches, direct production of agriculture. So anything that's already sales tax exempt on goods would remain sales tax exempt on services. We're also adding sales tax exemption to medical, so it's not going to cost you more to go get a surgery or a doctor's visit. And then education. Most education would already be sales tax exempt being nonprofit, but that way we're treating private and public education the same from that taxing perspective. And the way this would work, just hypothetically, say it passed this year, 25 would be the last year property tax assessments. 26 would be the last year property tax payable. So then you are starting to pay out of these funds in 27. So you're operating on the property tax system through 26. This fund would start, you'd start paying out in 27. You'd have to start, one of the negatives, you would have to start collecting the sales tax on services July 1st of 26. So you'd have a 6-month kind of period where you're paying both. And that's just because you're paying property taxes in the rears. This is a tax you'd have to start collecting in advance because you got to build up a surplus because sales tax revenue is more variable than property tax revenue.
Right.
You've got a constitutional amendment that has to happen to do that, though.
No,
right?
you do not.
Because we put a cap in, I guess, in the Constitution, so you could choose to have a rate of 0.
You could. So you could eliminate. So that is a cap. You can only tax up to that cap. It doesn't say you have to. You can go below it. So
okay.
What
That makes sense.
devil's advocate in me immediately
Oh,
thinks
yeah, go ahead.
10 years down the road, somebody's going to go, okay, now we can do both. Right?
I completely
how do you
understand.
keep the next generation from shooting me in the foot?
Well, first off, that's why my plan gets rid of it, basically like flipping a switch, right? Because I don't want to set up the process where you start to implement one and still have the other one in place. Once you get rid of the property tax system, once you get rid of the assessment system, it's going to be extremely difficult to put it back in place. I would trail it. I would do a constitutional amendment at the same time, or trail this with a constitutional amendment, because I think you're right. You want to lock that in so you don't get hit with both down the road or the other gets re-implemented.
So,
But that's a great point.
how would the distribution of those funds work? Would the service tax stay in the county in which the services are paid for, or would the state collect it and then distribute it to the counties?
Yeah, so the only way this works is if you collect it from a statewide approach, send it out on a formula. And
Gotcha.
if you and think about it from this perspective, in some of these rural communities, we don't buy all of our services locally. We have to go to bigger communities to buy our services. So we're spending the money in these larger communities anyway on services, whether
Okay.
you're doing attorney's fees.
Yeah,
or
that
other
was my
things.
concern too.
Yeah. So on the formula to distribute those funds, roughly 45% of your property taxes now goes to a school operations fund. Now it varies. Some school districts it's higher or lower. So I'd take 45%, put it into an operations fund bucket. And then those dollars would follow the student, just like how they do on the education fund. So that one was an easy one to figure out.
Yeah.
And then 20% goes to counties and 20% to cities. It's 2 separate buckets. I'm using a similar formula, 75% emphasis on population, 25% emphasis on miles of roadway. And that gets us really close to where we need to be so it's fair for both a rural versus a urban community.
So you're using miles of roadway in your calculation, but that's not necessarily determining the road funding. That's still from your user fees and everything else. You're just trying to figure out how to apply it in an appropriate way.
Correct. And that was the formula that I came up with that made sure that the distribution was fair for both a rural versus an urban community.
That makes sense to me.
How close does it come out on the revenue side so that, hey, you're maybe more equitable? It's on sales tax, so it's based upon consumption, but are you going to have more money than you expected to collect? So 7% is the right number. You're going to have a shortfall immediately and go, oh my God, we need a 10% sales tax.
Yeah. So the revenue projections, and it's really good when you see this. So it spreads out that taxing burden more fairly across all citizens. And then plus you're picking up revenue from non-citizens, whether it be tourists coming across our state borders, illegal immigrants would pay into this as well, because that's one of the sales tax is one of the few taxes the illegals actually pay into as well. So when you look at the numbers in 27, if we don't change anything with property taxes, we're going to need roughly $11.5 billion in property tax revenue, or that's what we're going to end up receiving. So that's the number you have to start with to replace, right? So what this does, it not only replaces the net levies, it also replaces the circuit breaker losses statewide. So the projections are between 13.3 or 13.4 to a little over 15 billion in revenue. So it more than replaces the net levies, plus it replaces the circuit breaker losses. So when you run the school, I've got a report that has all the schools in the state, the counties, cities. It brings more money to our rural communities.
And it would ensure more equitable funding.
Correct.
That Yeah, makes sense.
Well, we're
So why don't you think it's going to go through?
Because it's such a
it's radical.
It's drastic.
it's such a big bill that it's going to take time to sell it. That's the problem.
Gotcha.
I want to be mindful of time, so I wanted to get to Senator Raatz here and talk about some of the bills you've got and you're shepherding through this year.
Sure.
I went through today and just kind of picked out something from each of you that you had. You had introduced a Senate bill establishing school chaplains or the authorization for private or public schools to have chaplains. Wanted to maybe hear from you on that, and then some of the others that you were interested in this year, or the priorities as you saw them.
Thanks. So it's not my bill. I'm sponsoring the bill. I didn't author the bill, but I'm sponsoring it. And so with the mental health needs in schools today, this is a tool in the box. And so I'll explain it because the word chaplains creates controversy, right? So the bill is designed at this moment that the qualifications for a chaplain would be credit. They would have to have specific credit hours in counseling. And so both when I say that, the bill also delineates between secular and non-secular counseling. So it would be a volunteer position where someone would come in and volunteer their time and spend time with students. They could do biblical counseling, but they can't do it without parental permission. So there's a line drawn in the sand to make sure that that's set up that way. There are other states that are doing it. Last year, the same gal, she's from up north on 31, who brought it last year. We got it out of the Senate, didn't make it through the House. I wasn't quite happy with it at that time, but we've worked hard and got it to a place where I think it's more palatable. And essentially, again, the concept is simply another tool in the toolbox to help students that are struggling emotionally or with whatever they deal with.
And just to clarify for everybody, this is not forcing a school to hire a chaplain.
No.
This is just telling schools it's okay if you have one.
Absolutely. And it's a volunteer position, so they could pay them. They don't have to pay them though. It's traditionally a chaplain would be someone who volunteers their time, and they're basically they're not a novice, but they're not like, they don't hold a degree, or they're not ordained ministers essentially, right? And so I think we got this thing in a good place. Again, it's happening in other states around the nation, and so we're going to try and see what happens. Last year we got it out of the Senate, and it didn't make it through the House. But I think again we got in a good spot to make sure students are protected.
Other priorities that you have this year or things that you're looking to
Sure.
I just got your mailer this week.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm looking for there's a QR code on there to
I saw
give
it,
us some information back. Absolutely. So that we're, it will inform some of the sooner the better, because it helps us inform us on how our constituents things you want us to do or not do, I guess we'll put it that way. So one of my big priorities, and we're working on some teacher appreciation grants, but the first thing I'm going to say is that yesterday, Indiana landed number 6th in the nation, 4th grade reading and 8th grade reading, a jump of at least 13 spaces from other states. We jumped up that high in 4th grade, and a little bit less than that. I don't know the number. Maybe it was eight or 9 spaces in 8th grade reading. And we're actually not doing too bad in math. We just had a huge initiative in the last, in 23 and 24 to look at the science of reading and implement in schools. And that's part of it, because it's not fully implemented at this point. But I'm excited to see that we put a lot of requirements on teachers in the past few years, and it's come at a cost to them. And the political nature in the state house, it was a big battle between even the Republicans and how much we should do or how much we shouldn't do. Look, the bottom line is the United States of America used to be number 1 on the globe educationally. Today we're about halfway. We're somewhere like 23 or 26, possibly, maybe a point or two worse than that. So it's incumbent upon policy at the state house to push. And so I'm excited about where we're at, but this is just the beginning.
You're not changing the 100-day school year, are you?
No, not at all. No, that's not even, I'll tell you, the balanced calendar, I'm a little bit in between on that. And if you have students, you know what I'm talking about when I say a balanced calendar. So they have a fall break, they got Christmas break, they have a spring break. And so it narrowed the summer down to a short time as well. So I don't know if I think there's some learning loss for students, especially the younger ones when they're out of school for a couple of weeks. They got to start back up a little bit, get them caught up and get going. Cory, you or Representative Criswell, we'll get it right. You may see some of that. I don't know that, but it's part of the concept of maybe some of those things. So
I've always been split on that personally too, because it's like you've got to, especially like you said, young kids, they've got to lose a lot of information, especially if their parents aren't making a concerted effort through the summer. But then also, as a person who started working when I was 15, the summertime was when I was making money, and you'd hate to see, farmers or other employers just go, I'm not going to hire high schoolers anymore because what's the point? I only have them for 7 weeks.
And that was part of the argument. The first bill that came out, as I recall, was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And it said part of it was wrapped around students being able to earn money, but it was kind of focused on the industry that would hire them, right? And so it might have been a little bit backwards in how we viewed it, but I don't disagree with that. There's incredible value actually in summer work, right? You learn work ethic, you learn how to talk to folks. It helps students grow, in my opinion. So, yeah,
Very good.
I could talk education all day long, but I'll be quiet.
We'll have to get you back just to talk about education.
Representative Prescott, you introduced one that tweaked me as my history in local politics, and I've had my views on local elections and party labels. Bill 1230 would establish political party labels for school board races.
Correct.
You're on the education on the local government committee or the elections committee. So that's a pretty influential spot to be introducing that bill. Tell me what the response has been and why we're trying to go down that path.
Yeah, so this is I've actually introduced this in a couple times. I got it through committee a couple years ago. Didn't quite have enough votes on the House floor. There's more support for it this go around, but really this came from just every year there's a school board election. I have more and more constituents coming to me and say, who do I vote for? Where do these candidates line up politically? Who's the more conservative candidate? So all we're doing is really just trying to identify where these candidates are on that political spectrum, give voters a little bit more information. Because really, when you go out, when you see candidates running for school board, they all run on the same thing. They're for the kids, they're for the teachers, they're for the community, but they really don't say anything most of the time. Now, some do, but so it's really just the starting point, right? Figure out where these candidates align from a party affiliation. Now, just because you've got an R or a D beside your name, not all Republicans and Democrats are equal within that. You still gotta do your homework and evaluate the candidates and their positions. But this just gives voters that extra layer of information.
So why not consider something like taking party labels off for everybody that's county level and below, county and municipal level and below, except for Indianapolis because they're a big city or whatever. But if you're going to serve in local government in Henry County and in Union County and Fayette County, you need to have an R by your name or else you're not going to get. We had no election in the fall here at all. Our county election was determined in May in the primary. We were done. So you have low interest in fall elections locally. You would do the same thing at that point with school board where you're saying, oh, well, if you didn't win the primary and you didn't get the R by your name, then that's who we're electing. We're done. In my mind, you're almost going to drive down participation in the school board races, other than May when we picked them or we used to pick them in May. I guess that they were independently selected in the May primary.
Well, first off, let me clear one thing up. My bill does not have the primary process.
Right? Yeah.
It's just the general election designation. So there could be,
but they would have to go if you're going to get on in the fall. Then you would have to go through the primary to get on.
No, that is incorrect. Not with my bill. My bill just adds the general election designation. So when the candidate goes to run for school board, they would select
from any of the 17 different people that are declared.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting.
But to your point, though, on voter turnout, if you look at North Carolina, that's a good case study because they have it where their counties decided whether they wanted to go partisan or nonpartisan. Those counties that selected those partisan races for school boards, they actually had much higher voter turnout by identifying those candidates. So there is case study to kind of back that up, that it does increase voter turnout. The other thing you do with having that party affiliation, it gives the parties an active role in being able to go out and recruit candidates to run for positions as well. So I think the party process is important.
How about the straight ticket voting? Representative Saunders had introduced that a couple of times to just take straight ticket voting off of the ballot.
It was on Representative Criswell's survey.
That's right, and I think he's been listening to the show. A lot of the issues on the survey sounded like things we've talked about on here in the past. But taking straight, I think that we're down to 7 states in the country that have straight ticket voting.
I think it might be 6 now.
Yeah, we're in the single digits.
So I'll just kind of piggyback off of Representative Prescott's bill. I was weary of it. I'll just be honest, the first session, he knows that. We've had our discussions. And for those of you that didn't know, I'm a public school teacher, went to public school. I'm a public school kid. So I support public school teachers. And like Representative Raatz said, getting that 6th in the country and reading for 4th graders and 8th graders. And I told Dr. Jenner, her leadership as Secretary of Education, her leadership kind of drives that home. In my opinion, I told her in front of Ways and Means yesterday, she's the best in the country at her job. Her energy is just electric. When she gets in a room, she's vibrant. People listen. Both sides of the aisle like to talk to her, enjoy running questions. She never runs away from a question. You can ask her anything and she has an answer. So I think that's kudos to her, and then her leadership with everybody around you, then with Senator Raatz and Representative Baining kind of leading education, where they get a lot of, let's say they catch a lot of arrows from everybody around, media, people, teachers, and other things. But I would say what they're doing is hitting home, and educators, teachers, and we have the best educators around in District 54, and especially where I come from, I've seen the best of the best at all grade levels. So we have teachers that work hard, deserve to be paid what they're worth. I'm in agreement with that. Governor Braun, now he said he wants to raise their salary and get that done. I think we can get that done here in the next couple of years and see that in action. But getting to Representative Prescott's bill, I asked that on my survey too. About nonpartisan school board elections and whatever, it passed to be partisan, to put an R or D beside your name, or an independent, whatever, to put that by your name. 60% of the people that filled out my survey agrees with what his bill does. And then getting to straight ticket voting, 53% of the people agree that straight ticket voting should be eliminated. So for those of you that get those surveys from Representative Raatz or me, Representative Prescott, fill those things. We look at those numbers. Mm-hmm. So it matters what you have to say. And then we can go through. I just got my results today, so that's why I don't have a fancy printout for you like I did last time. I literally
you pulled on cannabis this time, didn't you?
We pulled on cannabis, and
did the people want to have some freedom?
They did.
I'm shocked.
So
shocked, I say.
So it was it was lower than the other ones, but it was an interesting result. And then I pulled on eliminating the gas tax and kind of look at alternative ways for road funding, which we talked about. And that passed with 80% I believe, said yes on that. So it was overwhelming. So we look at those things and we take that back and look at it. I pulled on your daylight savings times you always hit on, and it was about 80% that said 78.3 to be exact, wanted to eliminate daylight savings time. So I put on things. We listened to your show.
Fast time all the time.
Yep. So those are a couple of things that you asked him and kind of I hit on in my survey, and we'll take back in legislation. And like I said, we look at that stuff. So when bills come across, if we've asked it on a survey, it comes back and we recall what the results are on that survey.
There is a bill to eliminate daylight savings time today, exempt from daylight saving time. House Bill 1611. I actually co-authored that one. It's Representative Lindauer. So we can't go daylight savings all the time because of federal law, but you could exempt yourself from. And so unless the feds change the law, we have to just exempt from daylight savings. That's why we can't go with the fast time all the time.
Is it getting a hearing?
I don't know if it will or not, but okay. I have not heard yet.
You're going to burn the corn if you guys keep messing with when the sun's out, man. We're in trouble.
That's awesome.
All right. So tell me about the issues that you guys chose to pull. I got your mailer and I've not filled it out yet. And I looked at yours and I said, well, he won't let me. I'm not live in Stony Creek Township, so he won't let me comment.
Well, honestly, I don't know all the questions that I asked on there, but because it's been too long. But I agree with Representative Criswell. There's a QR code on it. The sooner you do it, the better off we are. We get them electronically, so a lot of folks don't have that capacity to use a QR code. But that's the best way because then we get the results in real time. And
Are they anonymous? If I leave you a comment, you know it's me.
The answer is yes. I look at if you handwrite me a comment, I sit on the floor and I read every single one of them. And I honestly it's very onerous, but you read them and then I try to answer back on a thank you letter that, you know what, I read what you said, but the sooner the better. I mean, it's hard for us. I mean, we're getting about halfway through the session. So to influence the legislation, now is the time.
There was a 10, 11 years ago when I was a brand new homeowner and I got my first property tax bill and I got a mailer from Tom Saunders. This is before I knew Tom very well. And back then you had to send it back. So there was a space for comments and I started writing. And then I ran out of room.
Looked it over.
Just started turning the pages.
Used all 6 sides of the sheet of paper.
Yeah.
No, we all get those. There's certainly, as I mentioned, if maybe you're not technologically advanced, and so you do it the old way, and so they're all important.
Before Senator Raatz turns into a pumpkin, Zach, do you have anything you want to ask? Nope. Or you're just having a grand time being over there quiet?
I'm staying quiet.
All right. So, Representative Criswell, you introduced one that made the front page of the Indy Star, the high school basketball transfer portal bill. That's the most attention I've seen you get in the legislature in your 3 years now.
It's probably not the last time you're going to see me in the Indy Star for that bill. So it's coming on seconds here next week. But
you're going to be like Senator Lysing with the handwriting, with the cursive bill. So you're trying to get an all-star lineup for Blue River basketball, I assume is what's happening.
not quite. But I'll kind of explain how it all came about to begin with. Now, House Bill 1492 is quote unquote the transfer bill. It is now, and House Bill 1064. So they combined the two, and House Bill 1064 prior to combining did. If you go to an athletic event, you have to have a cash option at the door. So that's kind of what that bill does. I went to a game last year and I left my wallet in the car and it was a packed house and I parked about, 3/4 of a mile down the road. And so they were like, I didn't have my wallet, only had a card or only had cash in my pocket. I went to pay. They said, we don't take cash. And I was like, I wasn't happy. So luckily a fine gentleman behind me said, I'm like, I don't have my card. I don't have this app that you need to fill it out, whatever. He said, I'll just hand me the cash. So that we kind of did it that way. But I was like, if it happens to me, my grandparents going to a game, just have a cash option at the door. Everywhere else, 90% of the schools offer a cash option, but that particular school didn't, and we'll leave it unnamed. But there's a handful, 50 schools or so that still don't. So this will just allow that. So then we added the transfer, and how that came about. Me and was Representative Morrison's now the head of the DNR kind of met with, and kind of in the legislators, they know if something's going to get done anyways, and you have an interest in that, you better get involved in it if you want it the way you want it done. So he had an idea. It was way more extensive than what I wanted to do or even thought about doing. So I said, I want to be on your bill. And then he got the head of DNR, and then the speaker and him called me and said, you're the next guy up. So here it is.
Now you're in charge of it.
So now I'm in charge of it. I had multiple meetings with Commissioner Neidig at the IHCA. Great meetings. Do they want to do it 100%? Probably not. But they have initiatives in place that here next month, they're going to vote on something that it's going to pass. The IHCA, it's going to pass their board of commissioners, and it's going to be into place. All my bill literally does is strike language from code that has to be struck. So their initiative starting July 1 takes effect. So I'll get into kind of what it's going to do. So all the people listening will have first preview. These guys don't even know kind of what the I'd say is going to do. It's going to be a one-time transfer from freshman to junior year. You can transfer one time for any reason. I start at Shenandoah. That's where I went. So we're just going to use that example. That's my home school where I start my freshman year. That's considered your home school. Say my sophomore year, I decide to transfer for whatever reason to Newcastle. I can play basketball right away, baseball, whatever sports I play. I can play right away, no penalty. Say it doesn't go as you planned at the only school you can go back to without any justification is your home school. So I could go back to Shenandoah and play. But if you go to transfer and then I want to transfer to Tri-High next, then it goes through the process that I'd say has right now.
And then you have to go through an appeal process with with one of those two schools saying okay, or both have to agree.
So it goes, they can both agree. It's still going to go through the process. I'd say as a board, you got to go in front of them, kind of explain your case on why you're transferring and things like that. So that's kind of the process from freshman to junior year. That's the process. Senior year is a little different. So there's going to be a penalty for your senior year to transfer in your senior year. There's going to be a penalty. I'm not going to say it's going to be your whole season, but you're going to have to sit out part of the season, whatever sport you played in your junior year.
Is this an issue that a lot of people are actually experiencing? Like
there's a case right now at, yes, there's a case right now going on at Newcastle. That's a little controversial. He's a decent player, moved here, had some family conflict, moved here with grandma and grandpa wanting to play. He lives 2.5 hours away and is getting limited eligibility got limited eligibility for 365 days. So this bill would kind of correct that.
What's the reasoning for the way it has been? Like, I understand what your bill does, but what was the thought process behind the penalties for transfers?
You're saying the way it's been right now?
Yeah, the way it is right now. Why are there penalties?
They don't want you school shopping.
They don't want you it's education.
For athletic reasons, not for educational reasons.
Education is, you're there to get an education first.
Right.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I'm a school. I believe that you're not there to go play basketball, but where it gets kind of confusion is inner city schools. You see kids going, I've seen examples of kids going to 4 different schools in Marion County in 4 different years, and they're playing every year. But if you do that here or kind of in the rural counties, it seems a little different. That's, it doesn't happen. Like if I go from Shenandoah to Blue River, it ain't gonna be that easy if I didn't move.
So what's like, okay, say my kid is having issues at Tri, and we decided to take him to Knightstown, and then we're like, or he says, I really hate this school. Let's try Newcastle instead. But he happens to be a good baseball player. He's transferring for educational purposes or other purposes. So is there?
Are you talking about right now? Or
I'm talking about
bills in effect.
I guess both. Really, okay. I just don't understand. I don't know the process.
So there is justification from the ICA. Me and my parents go in front of the board that kind of dictates that you give your case. So obviously, if you're a good baseball player at Tri, want to transfer to Newcastle, they're not going to let you go very easily. So I would say they wouldn't sign off unless you have very good documentation that you've been bullied or you've got to move for XYZ reasons. But you go in front of the board, pitch your case, and nowadays it's you and your parents. It used to be I could hire an attorney to do it for you. Now it's you and your parents kind of justifying your case. And sometimes they do approve for those reasons. Other times they don't. It just kind of goes off of those 7 people on that board currently.
I'm getting a headache thinking about
This is
There
This
is an
for
alternative
kids for
for
school,
so that
but this is for sports
Yeah.
are holding it up.
I had someone in Wayne County transfer from Ohio, and IHSAA denied him the ability to play, but the Department of Ed has they're the state board. I believe they can override IHSA. And in this case, we were able to get it done. But I want to say thanks. I need to scoot. Appreciate you both, and Representative Prescott and Criswell. Good to see you both. Appreciate what you guys do. And the last thing I want to say is, Representative Criswell mentioned it. When I look at the impact of where our students are at number 6, it's incredible for us. We could not do it without the teachers in the districts. And we're incredibly grateful for their hard work as well, and putting up with some of the changes that we've had to make, or that we made, that I think helped us get where we're at. And we're just getting started. So, but it's important that I make a shout out to them, because we can't do that, right? None of us sitting at this table. Representative Criswell at one time was, yeah, certainly. But anyway, thank you all. I'm going to excuse myself here. Appreciate the opportunity. Welcome to give me a shout out anytime. I'll come by.
All right. Thank you for stopping in. We're going to
Thank you
hang
very
out with
much,
the other
Jeff.
guys. The senator's gone, so the old supervision is that left of the room, and now we can get ourselves in trouble.
So I'll kind of hit on Senator Raatz, the way getting to you and your parents take that to the IHSA board. There is, and say they deny you access, there is an appeal process with the Department of Education that leads that appeal process. So there is an appeal process, and then the Department of Education, you're going to give your pitch to them. They can appeal it or uphold the IHSA's conclusion of their determination. So there's kind of a process now. But like I said, we've had multiple talks to IHSA commissioners and speaker leadership with them. They have initiatives that are going to go in place, and you guys heard it firsthand kind of what that is on this show. It's not really public. They're starting to do some Zoom meetings regionally for kind of what they're looking at. And I spoke to all my ADs, just to be frank, before I authored this bill. I spoke to all of them. I only had one that really gave me flack on it. He happened to be my AD when I was in school. So, and I called him last because I knew that he was probably going to be the one that had some setbacks and had some opinions on it. We talked it out. We agreed to disagree. That's part of the job. And we had a great conversation. We still talk every time I go in the gym at Shenandoah today. We still have great conversations. So
we got a high school coach in the producer's chair over there for cross country.
Yeah.
Is this going to change the cross country recruiting life?
No, but I do think that Dakota underestimates the amount of like active recruiting that goes on, especially in the Henry County situation. I think I mentioned in a show a couple weeks ago, I graduated with kids that moved around schools to either to get to like Newcastle because they wanted to be more visible, or they didn't think they were going to get enough playing time, and so they would bounce out to a county school. I think it'd be really interesting, like any point in the last 30 years, to look at a basketball roster and if you knew somebody that was local, and they'd be like, that kid actually lives in that district, that kid actually lives. So there's a lot more movement due to athletics than people actually understand or think. And so
Yeah, I played golf in high school, so it wasn't. I have no idea about
you
this
play a
world.
lifelong sport that I wish I would have played.
Playing golf in high school as well. So I'm with you.
There we go.
I mean, I don't think like in cross country, I don't think it happens as much, but like where in East Central Indiana, there's a lot of movement for basketball. There's probably some movement for football, maybe. It's probably more so basketball, but you see a lot of movement. So with one move, it seems pretty reasonable. Yeah, you could hear some stories back in the day, especially like dealing with, like, if you're a good volleyball player, and Newcastle's got a heck of a volleyball program, but like I bet if you're a really good volleyball player in Newcastle, I bet Muncie schools and I bet Burris was knocking on your door trying to get people to move around. So I think there's a lot more of that than people think. So it doesn't tell you one move, I think is reasonable. If it's your senior year, that's a different set of rules, and that's fine. All of a sudden, if you're moving around again, then yeah, you should probably, like, that's not good for the kid. At a certain point, you're sacrificing your education if you're like really shopping for athletic programs. But
A couple of issues that we've talked about on the show over the last few weeks, things that made the Indiana news cycle. Representative Wesco introduced the no-fault divorce bill. And I some of these I look at and I think, I don't know if they actually have legs. Something gets introduced and you say, okay, yeah, it's a bill, but is it going to get out of committee? Is it going to go anywhere? Does it have any chance of becoming law? We had family law attorney Sean Rao on with us last week, and he explained some concerns he had with it. If you guys looked at that, do you have any view and see that, hey, how much of this is actually, this is on the agenda and this is going to become law, and some of it's just noise?
I'll take, so I saw it on the show notes before I came, and I was chatting with the chairman on this bill, and I sent him the link. And that bill, obviously, every one of us has bills that we write, we file. We have constituents that come to us, have an idea. Someone else pitches an idea. We think it's interesting. So obviously, Representative Wesco, he did a great job today in committee, and he's a pastor, and he is a great public speaker. So at the mic, he's very interesting to listen to. On his voice changes, kind of grabs your attention. So he did a great job today. Obviously, he has a reason why he filed that bill. I don't know much about it besides reading it today. That bill is not going anywhere. I've been affirmed. So I wanted to relay that to you guys.
I think our audience is going to hope that was the case after what we heard from Sean Rao last week.
So I really haven't talked to Representative Wesco on this bill. He is my office mate, though, so I kind of know his mindset on things. We talk on various policies all the time. So I think where he's going at with this, there is no fault divorce when there's a kid, or I guess there is no, when there's kids involved in a divorce. The goal is to try and get the parents to work it out as best as possible, and have a more of that justifiable reason for that divorce versus just two individuals going and say, no, we're washing our hands from it and walking away. So I think it's trying to preserve that family unit is his intent. I have not read the bill, to be fair. I agree with Cory. I don't think it's going anywhere, so I haven't spent much time on it. But I think that's the intent. And really, as a society, when you do look at the high divorce rate, family breakdown, we do need to get back to those core family values as a society. I don't know that.
I think the divorce rate's falling, isn't it? It's actually decreasing again.
I hope so.
I think it's.
I'd be curious if it's the marriage rate's going down.
So I don't think
the only one I'm worried about is my marriage, and that one's still 1-0. The rest of them, they're not my business.
So I think that was part of it. There's lower marriage rates.
Yeah.
But it doesn't account for all of it.
Oh yeah. I bet that it probably contributes. It's probably not 100% of it.
I think, because, I mean, we have a generation now where a lot of people dealt with going through their parents' divorces. So there's going to be more of those people who say, I'm not going to put my kids through that, or I'm not going to get married, so there's never a chance that they have to go through that. I mean, there's, I joked about this with my dad in a discussion a little while ago about he's like telling me how, influences on kids. I was like, well, you hung out with some pretty shady characters when I was a kid, and they didn't influence me to be in bad behavior, but kids pick up on, I want to be like that person, and also I don't want to be like that person.
Mm-hmm.
So they're learning lessons, and I think we have a generation now that dealt with a lot of divorce and learned that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I hope, anyway. I mean, I agree with you. We do need to, for the future generation, it is in their best interest that their parents are together.
Yeah, every study shows that when you have two parents in the household, those children do much better through school. Their test scores are better. Their every, I guess, measurement that you can gauge, whether it be through educational standards, through economic standards, it's all better when you have a basically that nuclear family.
So speaking of growing, the speaker on opening day made Politico offering to bring in 33 counties in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
How I want my road fixed on I-70. Why do we need Christian County, Illinois? Why do we need to welcome them into the big tent?
Trump's bringing in Canada. It's not that big of a grab.
And normally,
leader got me to lead, Cory.
this is. I wouldn't have given this any credence at all, but it came from the speaker.
What'd you say? You want me to lead or you want to go?
It's not like it was Jim Lucas saying it.
Well, 30 to be fair, 33 counties in Illinois have voted to leave Illinois. So
I didn't know
we're
that either.
are a very hospitable state. So let's just lend out that Hoosier hospitality. Take a look at how do we start that process of bringing them in. This is just the first steps. We're not just going and seizing these counties. I actually propose a trade. Let's give them Lake County.
You're going to trade away Michael Jackson's birthplace, sir? He's like one of our most famous Hoosiers. How dare you?
Gladly.
And I gotta admit, I look at these 33 counties. They are 33 darn good counties.
I tried to find a list. I couldn't find them, but they were going to be like enclaves. It's going to
We
be
might
like
be able to
France,
provide
or
that.
where there's little sections that are, there's a part of France that's out off the coast of Canada. That's the way Indiana would be. But this is off the west coast of the Mississippi River. Right, it's in Iowa, damn near.
And so if we do take in these, so say this goes through and there's an agreement made, it still has to be certified at the federal level as well. But say all that goes through, it would have to be contiguous. You couldn't just have some island county out there. But it's essentially, if you look at a map, it's essentially the southern third of Illinois.
70 south.
Yeah.
It included Madison, which would get us another racetrack. Zach would have Gateway. Gateway International would be Indiana,
And they would also help with a services tax.
That's right.
What was it? Did you have the author of the bill for marijuana advertisement? Is that
I'm a
yours?
co-author on that one.
You're a
yes.
co-author on that one. Okay, I had that one right.
To prohibit it.
To prohibit it in the
Yes.
state of Indiana. So
Correct.
it's like we took.
We're getting ready to legalize it. Why are we going to get rid of advertising?
We're not going to
We
legalize
can't advertise plants now
So it
My
is a
God.
federally illegal product.
this week. Yes. Okay. All right. Please continue.
And it is illegal in Indiana, and it will remain illegal in Indiana as long as I have anything to say about it. And I know there's 50 or 100 other members of the House and 50 senators as well, but and a governor. But I'm going to continue to advocate against it. But if you go up to northern Indiana, you are just flooded with ads about marijuana.
For folks to spend money in cold water.
And we're going to have that same problem here as soon as it's legal in Ohio. They passed it on a ballot initiative over there, which is there's multiple reasons when you look at some of these other states and some of these these citizen-led ballot-led initiatives to show that we need to keep a republic and not go into that citizen-led initiatives that they have over there.
Is Union City going to turn into Tijuana here shortly? Are we? What's going to happen?
I mean, we are right there on the border, so
Yeah.
that is my fear that you're going to have all these drugs flooding across.
Can
And it is a problem.
my one suggestion for this bill
Mhm.
would be to at least include adult store advertisements as well.
ban those as well?
Yeah.
Are we all against free speech?
Take them out. I mean,
Where did I wake up this morning?
I'm just saying, it's my view is that pornography is more poisonous than marijuana ever will be. So, strike those down while we're at it, while we're taking stuff down.
So, what was the result of the folks you polled on the cannabis issue, sir?
It was 49, 41, and 9% undecided.
49% yes, 41 no, 9% I'm not sure.
Yep.
I've never heard of marijuana before. I need
Was
more
it-
information.
Was there legislation
Now,
this
my
year?
medical last year when I did it, my first year I did it together, which I was like, that probably wasn't too smart to do it together. So then last year I did medical. It was passed like
That one was
upper 70s,
overwhelming.
80%. And then this one was about 49, 41, and 9. So 49 yes, 41 no, and then 9 undecided.
Was there a legislation this year, or was it the last session I'm thinking of, where there was legislation proposed on the I can't think of the name of it's like weed, but it's not weed. Trump legalized it with the Farm Bill.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
I know
about?
what you're talking about.
There's stores everywhere in every little corner store and gas
Like
station.
Delta 8 or whatever.
Delta
it is.
That's
8.
it.
That's
Delta
it.
8. Yeah,
I think the House passed that the past couple of years, so now that bill's in the Senate, threw it in the trash can. So now I can say that with Raatz not being here. And then
so
I
that
think
was last session.
yeah,
I'm thinking
I think Senate's starting it this time. They're starting it that way. They pass it to us, and so yeah, there's going to be marijuana bills on our side right now. I agree with JD. It's not going to be legal right now, and I don't think any in future to come with Governor Braun. I will say Governor Braun said he was open.
He was
for
the
medical.
most empathetic to the idea during the primary of all the
I
candidates that were
agree
running.
from the debate.
And right now, you're no medical, no recreational. Don't even want Ohio
I'm
to
a
have
no
it.
on all of it.
Yeah.
And
JD holds tight. I'll give him a lot of credit. He holds tight on alcohol. He holds tight on gaming and this issue. When he tells you he's a no, and he has a reason why he's a no.
so let me get into that just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we talk about these surveys and the survey results, and this is one of those issues where if I pulled the survey, quite frankly, it doesn't matter because I'm going to vote where I'm at morally. And I've told the people in my district that every time I go out and campaign, I've said I am a hard no on marijuana. I'm never going to support it. I'm a no on expansion of gambling. Go to a small Baptist church. I'm a Christian. These are my personal beliefs. This is just where I'm at. I will not waver on that. That's just who I am.
Yep.
The Delta 8 thing is weird to me because, I mean, while I support legalizing marijuana, but I also support regulating it. And I mean, like we do with alcohol. And the fact that we've got gas stations selling weed vapes, it's odd to me. It just is kind of, it's weird.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That is an interesting. So
I can't buy a cold beer at Walmart, but I can go to the gas station and have
You can buy
any
all the,
kind of weed that
you
I
can buy
want.
all the glass you want.
So ironically, I worked on this bill with Representative Teshka last year. I first was a hard no on the bill when I seen what it was. But it's actually putting regulations on a product that's already legal is what we passed last year of Representative Teshka, and I forget the bill number and I had to go back and look. But there are these, I guess, Delta 8 CBD, I guess, oil infused adult beverages is what you consider them, or at least that's what the industry considers them. But legally, anybody could buy them. The way they're structured, or for 18 and older, maybe I'd have to go back and look at that. So with this, what the bill did is it actually put some more regulations and guidelines on those from the gas station, so it doesn't get into the hands of minors. So it was actually regulating more than it was. It wasn't legalizing any new products. It was actually putting safeguards into products that were already in place. So, based on the conversation we just had, ironically, I ended up putting a second reading amendment on that bill to tighten it up even further, and then spoke for the bill on the floor. So I am reasonable on those conversations and can work to find solutions.
So we reprioritized the day here, and Representative Criswell has been scratching off, and I think we've gotten to most of the things we had tried to get to.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we
With
kind of
some
have
extras sprinkled in.
an open forum to talk about other priorities that maybe we hadn't identified that you guys are trying to carry through or are concerned about. And I guess this is kind of the start of our final thoughts conversation as well. But Representative Prescott, any other priorities you have in the legislature this year, things you're trying to get done, or issues that you want us to watch out for that you think may be coming in the second half?
Yeah, so immigration is a big issue right now. That'll be that discussion's coming up as well. So making sure that we are giving the Attorney General's office and our local law enforcement across the state the tools at their disposal to be able to work and help the Trump administration as we're tightening up on immigration policy. There's some.
What does the state like? So help me understand where the state has. I don't view Indiana as having major issues. Maybe they do in production facilities. it's not in my daily life, so it's a blind spot to me. So help explain that.
Yeah, so there's multiple areas we need to. I mean, there are illegals here. We need to one identify, right? So collect that data to be able to share that with our federal partners from an enforcement. So one of the bills that I have, it actually, if somebody with an ICE detainer is arrested, then and goes through and gets processed, deny bail if they've got an ICE detainer on. That way, we're holding them until they are picked up by immigration enforcement. And then the other thing that it does is when students go to register, it would ask the immigration status. That way, we at least start identifying where there's illegals throughout the state. And then one of the last things it does is on the business, it's holding businesses accountable. If you're not going through and properly vetting your employees to make sure that they are legal citizens, it starts with suspensions all the way up to revocation of business licensure.
To put somebody on payroll now in Indiana, don't they have to go through whatever system it is?
They're supposed to, but not all are.
So what enforcement arm would there be to do that?
So this is adding some teeth to really that current law. So we're doing it through the licensure statute. So that you start with suspensions. So it'd be minor at start, but then go all the way up to revocation. So we're actually adding some teeth to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's always made sense to me about the immigration discussion is, there's a lot of people in the world who want to come to America and make a better living for themselves and their family, and that's awesome and should be encouraged. But then they come here and you have unscrupulous employers who instead take advantage of how bogged down the immigration system is and then pay them indentured servitude wages so that they have to live in squalor with 8 other families somewhere. That's just not right. We need to crack down on the businesses.
Yep. And to be fair, I think the federal government needs to do a better job of creating an easier legal path
immigration
as well.
system.
A more, yes.
Agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Because we do need...
Front door is quite closed right now.
Yes.
All right. Other priorities?
So you've mentioned school board elections, property tax, and budget is really taking up a lot of my time right now. Those are my main priorities.
I know a lot of our audience in local government is going to be very interested in how the property tax one goes, because I think that's the keystone issue for how everything else is going to work over the next 2 years.
Absolutely.
All right. Representative Criswell, what did we forget?
I think a couple of things I'm working on. House Bill 1323. It's a teacher licensing bill that Senator Raatz and Representative Baining knows I'm going to have every single year until it's an issue that's near and dear to me.
This is the teacher testing bill?
Teacher testing bill, yeah. So it's going to be every year until I finally get a hearing on it. And it just, I did change it a little bit this time. So it's puts a GPA requirement. Teachers say, I'm going to be a math teacher. Right now it's a 3.0. I think it probably should be a little higher, but they wanted me to start at 3.0. So I listened to colleagues and said I would start there. So I said, you get a 3.0 or higher in your content area in math, then you don't have to take the Praxis 2 test to get your licensure. You just fill out the full application.
You have a degree in that.
Yeah. Kind of streamline your way of licensure, and the fees go. You don't have to pay the $250 to take the test. And my thinking behind that is, first of all, it'd be easier for teachers to streamline that process. Second of all, we need to start, and JD and I now, Ways and Means, can start putting some teeth on it. We need to start holding these universities and colleges accountable for their education program, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to, producing good teachers in the long run, and do that. So that's a big bill for me. I co-authored a school safety bill, House Bill 1637, kind of just puts more funding in school safety. It's a hot topic right now. Bronze with this bill kind of opened a school safety arm, a director of school safety. So throughout the whole state, that kind of lead the school safety talk throughout all the school corporations. So I'm a big believer in that. I'm good friends with this resource officer here at Newcastle. He does a great job. And that's Newcastle Police Officer Chase Cogers. I'd say calls me all the time. He goes to a bunch of conferences, school safety conferences throughout the state. He talks about it. Friends with others in the county too, Shenandoahs, Blue Rivers, and different things. Hear a lot of positive things. We need to make sure our students stay safe, and I think parents want that.
Very good. Any final thoughts from you, Mr. Zach? Questions? Things
I've got one gripe I like to bring up, and then you guys are right in the middle of it because you guys are driving to Indy every day. This is one of those things that's just like, there's got to be a tweak we can do to this. So you guys are driving on 70. You go through the construction. There's no work being done in the construction right now, by the way. It's 55 miles an hour. You get to the west side of the construction. It's now 3 lanes of brand new, smooth pavement with nothing going on. Why am I still being asked to go 55 miles an hour?
Grass hasn't grown yet.
I know. This is one of the gripes I have, and I think I could legitimately say it's a construction safety issue. Is Indiana has construction zones, which at times are exponentially larger than the area where work is actually being done. And a couple of years ago, it was actually construction zone from Post Road to Ohio, and I could drive to Newcastle for weeks, and there was no work being done. Not a vehicle, not a cone, not a barrel, but 55 miles an hour for the entire east side of the state, so that like once every 3 weeks they could like tear up a section of pavement. And I do wish that we would deal with that. That's one of my pet peeves as a guy who's now as a state employee is going to be expected to drive to work 5 days a week instead of 3 days a week. And I'll keep that tidbit for later. But yeah, but like because I'll go to Ohio. You drive to Ohio and they'll have a construction zone, and it's a bridge. And the construction zone is 50 yards on either side of the bridge. It starts and stops. And if there's no work being done, they don't have a speed restriction. So that's just a gripe.
Tennessee too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Point taken.
Yeah. Well, you think about that when you guys are driving. You're driving 70 tomorrow. When you get past that, now everybody ignores it, by the way. But technically, if the police want to sit there, sometimes they do.
Not when that Ram truck's out,
and that's the right ticket. The trucks are gone. They're on the northeast side. Yeah, they moved those. The signs are still up, but they're gone. But there's no work being done, so that's why th're not there. There hasn't been a worker on 70 in like 3 or 4 weeks. So
his blood pressure is going up.
Winter mode,
man. Because I didn't even drive it today.
Final thoughts, Mr. Dakota Davis.
It's good to be back. It's been a few episodes since I've been on, so
Christmas episode, yeah,
it's good to be back in the old chair. Appreciate you guys coming on. It was a really good conversation. Enjoyed it. I always enjoy hearing, a little bit of inside baseball about what's going on at the State House, and this kind of format is really good for that because we're not pressuring anybody, and it's just a conversation. And I'm not Rob Kendall and popping veins in my forehead while I'm yelling at you about something, and we can just hear more like rationale, I guess.
I wish I still had one of my Red for Rob shirts around here. We had the custom ones printed up when everybody wore the red shirts. The teachers wore the red shirts in the State House, and Rob made it about himself, so we printed some T-shirts that said Red for Rob instead of Red for Ed. And he had a wonderful time with it.
He did.
If you have one, let me take a selfie with it before I leave.
I'm gonna have to get more made. I'm gonna have to get some more made. He got the OGs, and I think we had some more on demand printed after that.
We hosted a debate here between a teacher
and
Rob, and it was so funny because our teacher friend was like, Rob was a lot nicer of a guy than I ever imagined. It's not like he is on the radio at all. Like,
he is a good guy.
Rob is a lovely person in person. But on the air, he's a character. All right. Thank you guys for being a part of the show. You'll be some bonus content on the Patreon here in a minute. So
we got some black licorice to try.
If you're not a patron, you want to join and get into that. No show next week. We're dark, but we will have State Representative Kyle Pierce on in 2 weeks. So if you haven't had enough legislator talk, we're back in 2 weeks with that. We'll see you then.